They're going to ask you very tough questions that you either need to have answers for, or you need to have an answer for why you don't have an answer. And then you should be asking them questions as well. So
can you do this again?
May I have some money, please?
I feel like Tiny Tim here.
I need some money for my bicycle frame. Now we're in it. We're in it. We're here. Another episode. No Followers podcast. I'd like to talk to you about a topic.
Didn't you have last episode? When do I bring up my topics?
I'm not there yet.
Okay.
This isn't so much a two-way street as much as a one-way street.
Unlike the incubator,
yeah,
which is us battling with.
Nah, it's still a one-way street. No,
yeah, I'm right.
I'm just kidding. It's definitely not.
It's good battles.
It's more of a Socratic. The incubator is more of a Socratic method of ask questions, get answers, even if you don't want the answers.
Well, that's been some of the problem with the applicants, not the members.
I shouldn't say even if you don't want the answer. I should say even if you don't like the answers. But
that's a whole other podcast we have to do, is because taking information in is so important.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's last week or 2 weeks ago, you did the Louis. I love that episode.
Thanks.
Just because he was so innovative and he listened to the market, and when things changed, he changed with it, and he probably didn't cry and storm out of the building like
maybe he did, but
he might have. But
he is French.
What does that mean?
They're an emotional people.
And Italians aren't.
We're emotional differently. Speaking of which, have you ever heard? Not you, the generic you. Have you ever heard of the audience? You, the omniscient you, the all-knowing you.
Which is my normal.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of Sicilian Amnesia? It's when you forget everything but a grudge. You ever heard of this?
I never heard that.
Nothing against Sicilians. My family's Sicilian.
Yeah, I thought you were Sicilian.
Yeah, I'm Sicilian American. I'm Italian until Italians show up, and then I'm American.
And they're like, you're not an Italian. Dude.
Yeah, I'm just tired. I'm so tired. Welcome to another edition of I'm So Tired. Anyways.
Do you even know what the topic is?
Yeah, the topic is questions. Question. The topic is when you are talking to investors, I think too frequently it's very easy to get into the habit of like, you want their money. And so you're coming to the table.
No, that's not.
You don't think that that's very common for people to be like, we need this money?
Not coming out of this incubator.
No, I'm talking about just generally.
Well,
right?
we're here to educate the people.
Right, but if you want to educate the people, you have to talk about what generally happens, right? So
don't do that.
We're trying to fight against that, right?
Okay,
so I'm saying generally, it's very common for people to come to the table and go like, I need this guy's money or this woman's money, and therefore. But the truth is that, like we say frequently, especially as a startup or an idea stage or pre-revenue, seed funding, our opinion, investors should be bringing more to the table than money. They should be bringing either network or industry knowledge or something more to the table. But the thing that I want to talk about today is what questions should you be asking them?
Okay, but let's back that up. Because before you get to that stage, also something we push in the incubator and we talk about all the time is you better know how to get in front of potential customers, talk to them to get real market intel, and ideally sell something. So you shouldn't be jumping to the investor like I need an investor first.
That's a discussion of a whole other.
But so let's back it up because
you said that people need to know. I'm going to get yelled at in like 2 minutes.
No. I'm keeping it short and simple. You need to be the expert in the room on your business.
Well, so hang on. Let me push back.
I'll let you push back for 1 minute. 1 second.
Does my time start now?
Yes.
Okay.
It's up.
Time flies. You do need to be the expert, but like I was just saying, if you are dealing with investors that bring something to the table more than money, they might have value and expertise in. So like I am the expert in my integrated suspension frame and all, but if you've worked at Trek for 30 years you have expertise in the bike market and I want to collaborate.
But one expertise doesn't cancel out another. It's supposed to be additive.
100%.
So I'm just saying, why would somebody who has money and skill set show up to your door if you're not an expert and they don't see any value in you? Like, look at us. We argue all the time and we come from it from two different perspectives. We have very distinct experiences. And I never like to use the word expert. So we have deep experience in things that we know how to not get all the mistakes.
Yeah.
Okay. Which puts us how to skip some. And we share that with our members.
Yeah.
But if you're not in control of that part of it, why would anybody align with you? And going back to, I think what you're getting at is, what questions are you going to ask investors before you entertain it? But you have to be ready for those conversations, because as an investor, I'm going to push back on you too.
Yeah.
And if you can't answer, and we've had people here, who's going to buy your product? I don't know.
Yeah. What's your UVP? I'm not sure.
Right.
But I guess my point, I agree with everything. Well, I agree with most of what you said, but I guess the premise that I'm trying to hit on, because we could spend hours on this. The premise I'm trying to hit on is
we got hours.
It's not.
How's the crew?
It's not a one-way interview where you're going to the funders and you're saying, this is my widget and may I please have money to bring it to market and all this stuff. It's a two-way street where you're going, like you're saying, this is the value I bring. This is what I need. If you are that person that can do that, then great, let's talk more. But it's not a one-way conversation. It's a two-way conversation. They're going to ask you very tough questions that you either need to have answers for, or you need to have an answer for why you don't have an answer. And then you should be asking them questions as well. So,
can you do this again?
May I have some money, please?
I feel like Tiny Tim here.
I need some money for my bicycle frame. By the way, if you have worked at Trek for 30 years, hit me up.
Reach out. Oh, you won't answer.
We
that
are
one.
doing pilot programs.
DM me.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. DM him, because even if you do work,
He doesn't
at Trek,
know how to.
I probably won't answer.
He doesn't know how to answer DMs yet. All right, so this is a good topic. So you're an expert. You know your market. You kind of know your product. You need money to get to the next stage, whatever that is. What questions should you be thinking?
I just want to hang on. I know
Wasn't that a good summary?
That was a great summary. I just want to hit on something that you brought up before too.
Tiny Tim.
We could do a whole other episode on that one point of like, you need money, because there are a lot of people that go, well, I need money because I can't do my full-time job and this, And so what they're saying is
Didn't we do an episode on that?
We may have, but I'm saying we could do multiple
Let's
episodes
revisit
on
that.
But that's not the point of this episode, I guess.
Okay.
My point is you've already answered these questions. You said, yes, we have market validation. We know our UVP. We know our customer. We know our customer profile. We know how we're going to make money. We know what we would use the money for, which seems like a wild statement to go, everybody knows that.
Nope.
They don't. We've had conversations with people and say, okay, what would you use the funding for? And they go, oh, well, that's a good question.
And I'm going to go sideways for 2 seconds, because we need to do an episode to showcase how we came to our funding agreements.
Sure.
And how we came to our funding decision, because you're taking those people from that point forward with this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's my point, is like where we're at now is you've already done all of these analyses. You have market validation, and you are now ready to actually sit down with real money, not baloney money, with real money, take meetings, and try to get funding if that's what you and your company actually need. So now you're there. What are some of the questions you should be asking your investors? And again, we're talking seed funding, pre-revenue, but you have market validation.
Excellent.
Okay.
So what's your first question?
I put my questions into kind of 2 buckets. One is a logistical bucket, and one is a kind of a visionary bucket. And the first one is just kind of a blunt, broad one, which is, what do you bring to the table other than money? I mean,
But shouldn't you know that from research? You should never take a meeting.
No, but I want to know from your opinion, because what that's going to tell me is, do you expect to be involved in day-to-day even if you say, I don't want to be involved, if you go, I know how to run a business, well, now that tells me you do want to be involved. And maybe that's good. Maybe you're looking for a partner. Maybe it's bad.
Qualified.
Yeah. So I think like that question, and again, it's it's broad, but it's just kind of on the nose of like, why do you want to be involved with me and my product? Because if I'm dubious or not sure of your motives, it's going to be a tough relationship. So it kind of just goes right at it. So that's one for me. I
like blunt.
Yeah, it's blunt but not rude.
If it's coming from you, it might be rude.
It could be.
It could be.
And then some of the logistical questions are things like, what is your expected return on investment timeline? What happens if we lose this money? What happens if we need to do a follow-up round of funding? Do you need this money to pay your mortgage? Because if you do, it's not the right investment for, in my opinion, pre-revenue seed funding. Things that are uncomfortable to talk about because you just want to talk about this is going to be great, everything's going to go great, blah, blah, blah. What happens if we raise $500,000 and we burn through it and we're not to market yet? How are you going to feel if that happens? And if they go, well, I'm going to be pissed, they probably will be, but you got to have a plan for that. Are you comfortable giving me all the money up front? Are you going to give it to me in tranches? Are we going to set up milestones? Some logistical questions, a lot of which maybe is a little bit further down the line in the conversation, but I think shows that you've thought through some of the logistics of it.
But just using our fund, commercialization funding as an example, we usually lay those milestones out and say, here's our original plan, because we want their feedback, because you want to create a partnership ownership model, right? So I think some of those, I wouldn't put it on the investor, but I'd say, here's what we're thinking based on what we know. Here's what we need when we need it, and here's the milestones. I want to see how they push back, because that talks about experience, which goes around some of your questions, right? Are you used to this kind of funding? Well, I always ask, what else have you invested in?
Well, I was going to say, that's right? Another one of my kind of the long-term vision questions, and not a logistical one. What else are you invested in?
Right, because that gives me a sense of, have they lived through this ups and downs of startup or growth? Because every growth or every scale is a change, which means really you're kind of starting over on certain process levels. Yeah. But I think when I start, there's two things I always look for. I try to test them on how they are with crisis, or when they're told no. Yeah. Because the foxhole mentality, you don't know somebody until you work next to them right here. Right? But I also ask, why are you interested in even talking to us about this? Because for me, and this is my fundraising mantra, is I want alignment, not just in my team, not just in our clients, but with our investors. And that doesn't mean we agree. We don't agree, and we're still perfectly aligned, right? Yep. But I want the alignment on where we think we're going, because we know it's not going to be the straight road that we put on a PowerPoint, yep. Right? And I saw it the other day, somebody sent us, I didn't even share it with you, somebody put a hockey stick. And hockey stick projections just drive me insane. So
we are pre-revenue. We've never made a single one, but we think we'll do $400 million in revenue by next year. Yeah.
Excellent.
Cool. Do it. Good luck. I wish you nothing but the best. But yeah, I guess my point is that in my mind, when I talk about these questions, it's like a dinner meeting. Like you're very early on and you're just trying to feel it out. Like, yeah. But
those are all good conversation. I mean,
yeah. And that's what I mean. Like, especially the what else are you invested in or have you invested in? If they say real estate, nothing against real estate investing, it's a completely different risk profile than startup investing. One is a very heavily asset-backed security, essentially. And one is you can lose everything tomorrow and have nothing left to show for it. It's a completely different risk profile. So I guess that's what I'm kind of looking for with the what else. Another one that's like good dinner conversation is, what was your biggest challenge building your business?
But that would necessitate they built their own business.
Well, that's why I would want to ask that. Because if they said to me, well, I was a third generation and we really had most of our customers and distribution channels already, and I was very fortunate to step into it, you don't know the path that we're about to walk as a pre-revenue company. So even if you have a boatload of money, it may or may not be a good fit. I think that too frequently pre-revenue or seed companies go, well, what qualifies them to be an investor? They can afford it. And I think our point is that is one tick box very, very, very far down our list.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a good perspective for anybody trying to raise money is it's not a formal presentation to start. If you need that, that's somewhere, that's not the first step. Yeah. The first step, and if you're trying to raise money, it's the conversation, because at the end of the day, there's some decisions that are intangible to the money and the skill set is, can I work with this group? Because what people show you, they're not changing. They're not becoming better or less autocratic or less dictatorial or less control freaky.
Yeah. As
you get deeper into a project. If they are that up front, that's what you're going to have.
Yeah.
So, that's great to have a dinner conversation. Okay, we don't have to agree, but we can find common ground. This could be a potential partnership, which I think most people don't look investors as partners, and they should, right?
Well, and that's just it. Like, it's the dinner conversation is a way to say, for me, it's how do we handle uncomfortable conversations to begin with? Because chances are we're going to have a bunch of them. When things go well and when things don't go well, when we meet expectations and when we fall short, it's an uncomfortable conversation. If we can handle it civilly and maturely, that's a good building block in the partnership.
Did we mature?
I mean,
in the last
we
10
aren't,
seconds.
Yeah, we can't. But so that's
we
why
have good crisis conversations, though.
Yeah. Well, that's even like, like you said, like it's very rarely a formal presentation. You'll get to the point where it will come to due diligence, and it will be opening everything up so you can see what exactly you're getting into, ironing out the agreements, signing those agreements, et cetera, et cetera. So everything you say needs to be above board. But for me, a lot of it too is it worth continuing to invest time if we're not going to be good partners? And that doesn't mean you're a bad person, or it just means that I would be happy to continue to hang out with you, but we are not going to be good partners. And therefore I'm not going to go down this road with you.
And I think that talks about the stages that we always build into a relationship. You're not, and that's why I'm always amazed that we get so many pitch decks with proprietary information in it, because it says one thing is you're not very naive.
Yeah.
But more importantly, it's like you're not sharing everything until somebody filters themselves towards you as a qualified investor. Yeah. And qualified means a lot of things, right? All the things we just talked about. So you're not sharing everything up front, and that's always been the shock to me. Like, because we're so protective of just sharing information, because there are people will take meetings.
Yeah.
And these are people with money. They will never invest because it's an ego play. Somebody's begging me. I'm in control because you're begging me for money.
Yeah.
And you don't know how loose they speak.
Yeah.
Right? So those things are really important to us as we entertain any investor. It's like, just, it takes time to build a relationship and trust. So I'm not doing it in one meeting.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I've had conversations with people that, we were early stage conversations about investing, and they said to me point blank, like, I being them, when they built their company, they did a friends and family round, and it ruined their relationship with friends and family. And like, it's a good piece of honesty that shows, okay, this person is willing to be honest with me. They're sharing their experience. They're saying they did an investment round that didn't work out. It showed, like, those simple questions of, like, I just kind of want to know your story, because it determines whether or not this is going to be a good partnership no matter what. And not so much, hey, can you afford this? Here's our 5-year pro forma. Because as everyone knows, those pro formas are bull. They're only as good as your assumptions that you build it on. They may be well-intentioned or they may be garbage assumptions. But chances are things are going to take a bunch of turns, and you might get there, you might never get there, you might far exceed it. I think what a lot of that stuff does when you do get to that phase is it shows investors that you thought about it critically, that you didn't just go in and say, I believe in it so much I can't fail, that you actually looked at it and said, like, all right, here's the market, here's what we can capture, here's what we can do with the resources we have, here's our go-to-market strategy, Here's how we can execute that strategy with your funding. And if all that goes right, this is what we see financially for the next 5 years. Most people know that those are wrong, but they want, from my experience, want to see that you went through the exercise of thinking through that strategically. It's less about the actual number and more about your ability to think critically and build assumptions and build a model.
So I think to add to that, some of the big questions we ask, if all the other things seem to line up, is asking them ideally, what does this investment look like? What does it result in? Because I've had people say, next year you're giving me a check for $1 million back. And I was like, it's going to take us 2 years to build the product. So where are you getting the $1 million back from now, right? Yeah. So that just shows maybe the lottery mentality, and I always call it the Hollywood poster mentality for being in LA for so long. So that's one question, just to have them tell you what they're looking for, because that creates an honest conversation. And you have to be honest saying, well, if you looked at what I showed you, it's never going to work that way. Right. Or maybe that works. If the stars align and we do everything perfectly, maybe that works. Yeah. I think the other two things is if they say no, and I hate maybe, like I want to leave a meeting with, I'm still interested, and here's what you have to do to keep my interest. Send me an agreement, send me a deck. Yeah. But also, what else are you looking for? If you don't want to invest right now, what do I have to do or prove to you that makes you closer to investment? Yeah. Like, get them to say something. And maybe it is go get a paid pilot. We've had that a lot. Go get a paid pilot. Yeah. Go pick up manufacturing license or reps. Yeah. Like, do something, and we're like, okay, I can work with that or I can't. Yeah. Yep. But if they're still categorically no, because, and we've had this meeting, real estate investors typically do not put money into startups because it's a completely different mindset. Yeah. We've had people say, well, I'm not going to do it because we really just invest in real estate. My question always is leave, but if you liked any part of this, who do you know that might be interested? Because you need to keep networking. It's a numbers game investment, just like sales and everything else. If you've had a good conversation with someone, if it's been a disaster conversation, you kind of want to just peel away, because everybody runs in tribes. Good people, even if you don't do deals with them, probably have other good people around them that might. And if somebody was really, whatever word you want to use, just didn't work with you, not aligned, you probably don't want those introductions. But use that line to get other people to go talk to, because now you're starting to build the warm lead. Yeah. And a warm introduction goes a long way to at least having meaningful dialogue to get feedback. Well, and that's always the thing we're looking for. An investor meeting isn't yes and no and done. It's let me get more intel, just like we do with our focus groups and our secret shoppers and everything else we do in the cohort.
It is likely that as you go on this path, friends and family or random people will toss money at you. And it may not be a huge sum of money, but it might be enough where you go like, oh man, that would get me through the next 2 months or the next quarter or the next 6 months, or that would get me this new piece of equipment to roll forward. And that's when these questions come into play, because you have to think to yourself, do I want to be married to this person for potentially the rest of my business career?
If it's family and friends, put it in writing. Yeah. Don't do the handshake deal. Just put it in writing. I don't care if it's your mom.
Well, even family and friends, like I've had money. I've had people say, oh my God, we love it. We would love to be involved. When it comes time, let me know, and you have to ask the questions, because you have to walk away going like, oh, I would never take their money. Like that would never end well. Or, that would be great. It'd be a great fit, whatever it is.
But if you did, put it in writing.
Yeah. And know what you're getting too. Cause I also have, and as do you, we have friends and family that they looked at something as a loan, and the people that took it looked at it as an investment. And so when they went to court, it came down to what was in writing and whether or not that was a loan or whether or not that was an investment. Because an investment, you lose it. A loan, no.
You still might lose it.
Well, he still might. Well, I mean, he lost it, right. But he had recourse because the agreement laid out what happened if they defaulted, essentially. So knowing specifically what everyone's signing up for is a huge part of it.
You want to take us out since you started this?
I suppose, Bob.
Okay.
As always, like, follow, subscribe, No Followers Podcast, First Strike Incubator.
Sponsor too. Come on.
Sponsor, thanks to PPLSTRIKE, our sponsor for all your HR, management, payroll solutions for your gray and blue collar industries. keep up with us, send us DMs, let us know anything you want to talk about, and we'll see if we can.
And
lend
shoot me
some
DMs
insight.
if you want to be a guest. We're starting to interview for the new year. Have a whole new programming lineup.
Yeah, we do have
Bring it on.
some new exciting stuff coming out in the new year. So stay tuned and tell your friends. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.